aspect of our circuit. So I'm going to plug back in the fancy high-tech soldering iron. Again, we're trying to conserve that tip a little bit. And what really makes this, what really helps make the magic work for this circuit, this oscillating circuit, and amping up our voltage, or not amping up, but ramping up, is this thing called the transformer. And this is right here in this little bag. It's a T1. This costs about, I don't know, $15, $20. It's a pretty cool little feature, but basically it has a bunch of windings in it that magically almost transforms 9 or 5 volts up to a pretty high voltage, and creates a, yeah, I'm not going to even try to explain it on camera because I'll look like a fool, more than I already do. So let's just keep going. So there's only one way to put this in. As you can see, the pins coming off the bottom have a unique pattern, and that pattern matches our board. So you can only put it in one way, but you can still screw it up, because if you push it too hard, these fragile little legs, as you try to, the natural tendency is to push it flush with the board. Like right now, you can see there's a gap, and I'm going to get it all the way down, and when you do that, it'll snap and break. So that's as far as you can get it. And so there's not much you can do at this point to go any further, so don't try. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this flat on my ESD, which I think we're getting ready to do. Oh, no, we got to put one more thing in. This is our power MOSFET, which is like a switch. But using that oscillator, that switch allows us to work with the transformer to ramp up that voltage. So I'm going to take out my Q2. And again, I hope you're all still strapped in with your ESD mats. And just like before, I can utilize the board if I'd like to kind of pre-bend this, and I'm going to try to do a much better job this time, and bending these leads here. You want a nice, good 90 degree, and I didn't do a good job on that one. So now that I've done it 90, oh yeah, that's pretty good. Now, what I can do this time, which would have been smarter last time, is I'm going to go ahead and clip it like that. When I flip the board over, I know it's flush with the board. Now, we've already used D9, so I know that these two are the right ones. I'm going to go ahead and take them out. I'm going to pull these pieces of tape off. And you'll notice on the board itself, those lines are opposite each other. So I need to make sure. We've had a lot of people mess this up, so one at a time. Before you push it all the way down, again, wonderful shot of my hand here as I do this important step. Make sure that as you're pushing it down, these I should have pre-bent. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out because it's a pretty tight fit. So using my bending tool, you'll see that little notch. Okay, this is important. We have to get, like a polarity, we got to get that notch. If we did our socket correctly in installing it with the notch on the board, we're going to be golden right there. So there's the notch on the board. Let's put the notch from the chip, all line it up. Now you'll see, by the way, these legs of this, what looks like a bug, are kind of bowed out. So what I recommend is to kind of use carefully roll those legs over, just with the uniform pushing on my mat so that they slowly get more perpendicular. Okay, and that way you're not doing them with a tool, and you're using just gentle pressure to get them like that. Okay, so line up that socket on that side, and then slowly, just kind of, don't force it, just try to get all the legs into the socket holes, so they're all kind of started. And you might have to pinch your finger before or after, and there's a nice close-up with the notch. matching this side of the notch on the board. And that completes the circuit of our oscillator. And once this oscillator is powered, what we're going to see is through this transformer and this power MOSFET or switch, we're going to see this 5 volts coming out of this get ramped up to anywhere from 500 to 1,000 volts. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take a break here because we want to be sharp when we do that test. So we are going to, we've got our multimeter set up correctly. Next, we're going to plug in power just like before. Now I want to caution you that as you're using your hand to slide this on, you will feel a little bit of a pinch or a poke of potentially high voltage if this is working right, if you're not careful where you're gripping. So I'm going to grip right here, and I'm going to slide this on carefully. Again, the black wire on this side to ground and the red wire to 9 volts. And with that, I am going to use my test ports that I have conveniently placed on this board. See if I can bring that in. Hopefully you can see all this at the same time. And I'm going to test right here at ground and right here at the V+. And you can see I'm getting around 548 volts. 540 volts. Oops. 525 volts. Remember, we started with 9. This whole circuit regulates it to 5. This oscillates that 5 volt signal through this transformer and this power switcher, and now we have over 500 volts. And that's exactly what we want to see. Anywhere between 470 volts up to 850 volts, as the slide says. Lately, over the years of this circuit and some of the components, we're only seeing about 540, 580 volts, which is fine. Okay, so that's great. And what you're going to do next, and by the way, I also have here my proper colored sheet like you're all going to have in your kit. And I'm going to record, again, I have a lot, oh, here's my pin. And I'm doing the high voltage regulation test, and I tested my continuity. I saw no beep, and I'm going to record my voltage, which is about 540 volts. So please fill these out because we're going to use them to verify you're ready for flight when you ship all this back. So it's really important you do it correctly. And I'm going to record my voltage, which is about 540 volts. So please fill these out because we're going to use them to verify you're ready for flight when you ship all this back. So it's really important you do it correctly. So that was that. That was our high voltage regulation test. And next what we're going to do is add in, if I go back one slide, we're going to actually regulate that high voltage. Because right now it will vary on your boards between 500 and 40, 580. Some of you might even get an older circuit. Some of the components in it might be higher than 600 volts. We want the Geiger tube to see 500 volts or roughly 500 volts regulated. So we're going to add in a circuit or some components to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in my soldering iron here and get that going. And let's go ahead and start looking for our components while I'm doing that. And while it's heating up, I do want to mention that I've also switched out my third hand, or helping hand, that is heavy, weighs a lot, of course. It works really great, but in your kit, if you ask for one of those, you're going to get these guys. And these guys are a little lightweight. They come with a little piece of double stick tape that you can stick them to your D5 and D6. So I have right here D4, D5, and D6. Because I don't want to mess them up, I'm going to start with D4. And I'm going to go ahead and install all of these, and then I will solder them at once. Step up on the slides for you as well. That completes our regulation of that high voltage. And we're going to do a high voltage regulated test. We're going to complete the same steps we just did for the unregulated, but now we're hoping to see a regulated 500 volts. So I'm going to reconnect all this. I'm going to bring in my multimeter again. I'm going to turn it to that magical musical symbol. Hit the yellow button in this case until I get to the little speaker symbol.